Watermaker is not working. And with a little deduction, I have figured out it is the feed pump pressure switch. So that is this little doohickey on the bottom of the feed pump, and it cuts the pump in and out depending on the pressure. So since that isn't working, it's not telling the feed pump to come to life, and we are not getting water, and that stinks. So the replacement part, I looked into getting it here in Key West, and it is a $34 part, they say, and the company wants $58 for said part, $20 for shipping, and it should be here in a week and a half. So that doesn't quite work for us. Robin has friends coming in just over a week, so I found this website HeadSync, and the SureFlow pressure switch is $35. I ordered one and had it sent to Robin's friends, but I'm like 50-50 on if it's gonna get there in time. My buddy Dave is coming in 3 weeks' time, so I'm ordering another one, spending the extra $8 shipping, and having it sent to Dave. So one is going to Nevada, one is going to Louisiana, and then they will get brought to us in Florida in 1 week's and 3 weeks' time. So if the one from Sarah and Mark doesn't make it, Dave certainly will. And in the meantime, I can bypass the switch and we can run the Watermaker, but we have to keep a real tight eye on it. Or I can take this pressure switch apart and see if I can unstick it and get it to come back to life for a while, which will be the next thing after the Autopilot is up and running, and probably before I figure out why the freshwater isn't working. Boats, man, boats.
This week, while Arabella starts to make her way back up the East Coast, Steve gets a few things done on the boat, with fingers crossed that sometime very soon the Autopilot can take over the job of steering the 3,000 miles back north. But before getting to the boat work, Steve and Robin were invited out for a sunset cruise on the Schooner Hindu by the ship's captain, Josh Rowan, who also oversaw the 4-year restoration of the boat that was relaunched last summer in Thomaston, Maine. The next day, it was time to get back to work on the Autopilot. Steve was hopeful that it would be up and running before they started moving north from Key West and on up the coast again.
Sometimes it's amazing how much you have to deconstruct to construct. We got our wire here coming from the rudder feedback sensor. And this is the power cable for the stern light, which is on the back of the boomkin, right back there. But my issue, if you look in the back of the box here, is this is where that came through, which is all well and good. It doesn't give me room to mount this guy. So it wouldn't fit above, and it wouldn't really fit below, because this was right in the middle. So we're gonna see if we can get this plug for the auto helm just above where that hole is. We'll reuse it and just kind of drill just above it, and then see if we can get the cable gland down here, move that wire, reconnect it. And then I've got to undo this part of the tow rail so that I can get this wire behind, because one end is permanently attached to the rudder feedback sensor, and then the other end has got this big old plug, and it won't fit. And here is that cable gland that I took out that had our wire for the stern light through it, and we're gonna pop another hole in it, and we're gonna run the wire for the rudder feedback sensor through that, down through the hole, and connect to the hardware down below decks. Very close to done with the on-deck stuff. So we're gonna mount the bracket for the auto helm. So this is anodized aluminum. Should behave pretty well, but these are stainless bolts, and we're putting it onto a stainless plate. Now, if we were to do this and put it under the water, all hell would break loose. But being above deck, it's really not too big of a deal. But we do want to isolate this big surface area from the stainless as best we can. So you could put some sort of rubber gasket in there if you wanted. I'm just going to cover it in tough gel, which is a corrosion eliminator, and it also doubles as an anti-seize lubricant. And stainless likes to gall, so we want to put some of that when we put the nuts on and crank them tight. And if we were to lose these bolts for some reason, we stand a dang good chance of losing our autopilot. So I drilled a little hole in one of the bolts, and we're gonna put a ring in it. And I also have some removable Loctite. So this should be enough to hold it and keep the vibrations from working the nuts loose. If this doesn't, this ring should definitely keep the nut from coming off. And if all else fails, the bolts are down, and at least gravity is helping us. So should be able to keep our auto helm. But these are all things to kind of keep in mind when doing this. The wind and the little bit of waves and then the boat wakes certainly make this whole process a lot more interesting. Much more challenging than being in the boathouse. And you might notice these bolts have a little bit of slop in them. I did that on purpose so that if the alignment isn't totally perfect for some reason, we've got just a little bit of wiggle room. And once we snug these down, there will be plenty of friction. It's not gonna go anywhere. Stay. I realized that if they're all coated in tough gel, putting Loctite on them is probably pretty fruitless. So they're in with the tough gel so they can't seize, and I got the split ring. You can see it in the back one here. Do the same thing and cover this bowl. It's going to be stainless running and looks like brass or bronze bushing. And it'll be a stainless screw into a stainless nut. And this is something that we're going to want to do and undo over the years. So we don't want it getting all galled and crusty and nasty. The cable gland got moved from up here to down here, and the rudder feedback sensor got added, and that got all tucked away. And then this is the cap. And this is where the Autopilot, Auto Helm will plug in. There's a cord for that. Now we are going to fill this with grease. This is for waterproofing electrical connections. It's a silicone compound, seals out moisture and corrosion. It's what we use with the tender, trying to save those silly little pins. Okay, the above deck electronics are hooked up. And get out the vacuum, clean up in there a little bit. Put this panel back in place, and I think we're ready to go down below and start getting everything wired up and set up down there. The Garmin setup comes with 2 doohickeys here. This one needs to be mounted near the center of the boat, and it is pulling data for roll and pitch and yaw and basically just what the boat is doing in space and time. So ideally having it somewhere towards the center of the boat is going to give you the most accurate information. So I'm going to put it against the cockpit behind all of this hardware here, right underneath that little deck prism. So we'll tuck it back there, and it'll be in the center line in the boat, and we'll give that a try. So this ties in with our cable here, which runs to the lazarette, and that is where our other doohickey is back there. And that is where the rudder feedback sensor ties in, the power to and from the actuator goes, and this cable is attached to that. So we're gonna hook that up to here, and we're gonna put on our NMEA cable, which is the data backbone that Garmin uses, and we're gonna tag that into our network. And then we need to give this whole rig power, so we need to hook it up to one of the breakers. But I think we're like within an hour should be trying the Auto Helm. Woohoo!
1 hour might have been an overly optimistic window to get everything done, so Steve planned on getting into the breaker panel the next morning before they set off for the day.
I can't believe you have any idea what any of this is. It's incredible to me.
All right, I think that's it. Hopefully that breaker's heavy enough. The Auto Helm comes with a 40 amp fuse, which is really high. And I talked with Bob, who is an electrician and ABYC certified, and he agreed that that seemed quite high. and that we probably didn't need a breaker that was that heavy, especially considering what the wiring is. So most of the panels, 15 amp breakers. I wanted to put in a 30 and kind of split the difference. I couldn't find that. The closest I could get was a 20 or a 50. So I've installed the 20, gives us 5 extra amps. We'll pop the breaker if it overpowers. If it does, and it seems like it really needs all that juice, we can switch it out to the 50 amp fuse. But that seems like an insane amount of power.
The system was ready for testing under sail, but as they fired up all the navigation equipment, it was clear that they weren't quite there yet with the autopilot.
I guess life threw us a few curveballs today.
Yeah, I keep thinking I got it, and then it's like, nope. So this is what we've been experiencing with the chart plotter since we connected it to the auto helm and got that system hooked up. This is our heading line, which should in theory be the direction the boat is moving, and it is definitely not. And then our wind reader up here. This drift is new. That's never been there before, but we're definitely not drifting that way at 5.5 knots. And our wind speed is definitely less than 35 because we are full sail right now doing less than 5. There's no way the winds are that high. So, something went funky when we got the auto helm connected to it all. I'll have to figure out why it's funky and get it unfunked.
Steve planned to meet up with Bob again, who had been helping him with a few electrical issues and projects on board. Until then, Steve got ready to take on a more manageable project that he could finish without consulting an electrician.
When I built Arabella, I put in these big sheets of 1/2-inch acrylic for the hatch. And we really like it. It lets in a ton of light. They're super tough. You can stand on them and not worry about it. But they do not do much for ventilation, which for us hasn't been much of an issue because it's been so flipping cold for most of the time we lived on the boat. But my first project here with the supplies is going to be to make a much less nice drop board out of some plywood, and we'll paint it, but that has a screen in it instead of a clear piece of acrylic. And that way when it's buggy, we can put in the screen drop board and have a nice big screen here, get some of that air flowing through the boat. So let's see if we can get that built. And this is precisely why Victoria is rung in fenders. Got my dock cart, my list, and we got a mile-long walk, which is a super cool park here right near the Marina. Robin came in this morning with a Kiva and got a bit of a workout while I was going through the boat and figuring out what my shopping list was. And down here, it looks like a pretty busy road. I don't think this is going to be the nicest walk I've ever taken, but I'll take it. It's a mile. I don't have to get an Uber or something else, so it works. It's always nice when you have a pattern.